Senate morning roll call, day 35, March 4th, 2025. Anderson? Here. Barlow? Present. Bonner? Here. Brennan? Here. Case? Present. Cooper? Here. Crego? Here. Crum? Here. Dockstetter? Here. Driscoll? Here. French? Here. Guru? Here. Hicks? Here. Hutchings? Here. Ide? Here. Jones? Here. Cole? Present. Landon? Here. Larson? Here. McEwen? Here. Nethercott? Here. Olson? Here. Pappas? Here. Pearson? Here. Rothfuss? Here. Salazar? Here. Schuler? Here. Scott? Here. Smith? Here. Steinmetz? Here. President Beitman?
Here.
Mr. President, 31 present.
Thank you, Ellen. Chaplain of the day is Brother Ron Ramirez from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in Cheyenne. Brother Ramirez, will you lead us in the prayer, please?
O God, our eternal Father, humbly we stand together with bowed heads, with love for Thee and respect for each other. We are thankful that we live in such a wonderful land where we have a government by the people and for the people. And we're thankful we live in this great state. Dear Father, now we ask a blessing upon the members of the Senate this day. Be with them. Their responsibility is great. Their decisions are hard. But Thou knowest all things. Be with them, inspire them, and guide them in all they do this day. And watch over their families. And watch over them and take them home safely to their families. And may everyone understand the sacrifice that they are making and show them the love and respect they deserve for all that they do. Now again, Father, we thank Thee for all of our many blessings, and we do so most humbly in the name of our beloved Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Senator Bonner, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Randy? Well, Brother Ramirez and Brother Zellers, we, on behalf of the Senate, would like to thank you for your prayers the last couple of days, and thank you for joining us and offering such lovely prayers for us. Thank you so much. Here's a token of our appreciation to you.
A privilege, Mr. President.
Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought I'd start this out early. Honorable members, we have some cake in the back for members of the Senate, and it was actually brought by Mr. Joey Correnti, who I think all of you probably know. Joey was a member of the Army, served in Europe and Asia and the Pacific. As you know, he's a former chairman of the Carbon County Grand Old Party, and he has a focus on rural Wyoming matters. Some of you actually got some red hats, but today is his birthday, And I thought we would recognize him as, and give him a cheer from the State Senate. So please, thank you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joey. Happy birthday to you.
All right. Reading correction and approval of journal. Will the reading clerk please read the journal committee report?
Mr. President, your journal committee reports that the Journal of March 3, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Crum, Chairman.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, the report is adopted. There is no doctor of the day, unfortunately for me. Today in Wyoming history, on this date in 1886, Governor Francis Warren signed a bill authorizing construction of the Wyoming Capitol Building. And on this date, excuse me, in 1915, Governor Kendrick signed a bill creating the Public Service Commission, 110 years old today. The quote for the day, "Don't worry about failure, you only have to be right once." Drew Houston. Today's dad joke of the day, "When my wife told me to stop impersonating a flamingo, I had to put my foot down." And today's announcement, ooh, Ellen liked that one. I got a laugh out of Ellen. Mark that down in the journal there, Senator Crum. All right, he's got it. Last day for third reading in second house is today. And once again, additional funds are due for snacks and beverages available in the Senate break room. Please submit your payment to Heather in the LSO office or Kelly in the leadership office. And Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, following up on the fact that our Wyoming Public Service Commission is 110 years old, it's hard to imagine, but they are having a little bit of an open house, and from 2 to 4 today, I imagine we'll have some downtime during that period when we're waiting for the sound of the gravel, and so they're only 2 blocks, and it'd be good to stop by. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Case. Okay, that's new business, signing of enrolled acts. Excuse me. Senate Enrolled Act number 72.
Senate Enrolled Act number 72, being original Senate File 86, Alternative Teaching Certificate, an act relating to the certification of teachers.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 72, being original Senate File 86. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 71.
Senate Enrolled Act number 71, being original Senate File 43, Temporary Water Use Agreements Amendments, an act relating to water.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 71, being original Senate File 43. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 70.
Senate Enrolled Act number 70, being original Senate File 51, Wyoming Telecommunications Act revisions, an act relating to the Wyoming Telecommunications Act.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 70, being original Senate File 51. So signed. Congratulations, Senator Case. House Enrolled Act number 59.
House Enrolled Act number 59, being original House Bill 219, an act relating to state lands.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 59, being original House Bill 219. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 60.
House Enrolled Act number 60, being original House Bill 83, an act relating to domestic relations.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 60, being original House Bill 83. I have so signed. House Enrolled Act number 61.
House Enrolled Act number 61, being original House Bill 337, an act relating to elections.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 61, being original House Bill 337. So signed. House Enrolled Act number 62.
House Enrolled Act number 62, being original House Bill 318, an act relating to elections.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 62, being original House Bill 318. So signed. Messages from the House.
Mr. President, the following messages are dated March 3, 2025. Message number 463, House adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 report on Senate File 86, Alternative Teaching Certificate. Ayes 37, noes 23, excused 2. Message number 465, Mr. President, the House adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 report on Senate File 43, Temporary Water Use Agreements Amendments. Ayes 60, excused 2. Message number 455, Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 62, Prostitution Amendments. Ayes 57, noes 2, excused 3. Message number 456, Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Joint Resolution 3, Support for Rural Schools. Ayes 60, excused 2. Message number 457, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 316, School Finance Model Recalibration 2. Ayes 60, excused 2. Message number 458, Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 147, Prohibition of Institutional Discrimination. Ayes 55, noes 5, excused 2. Message number 459, Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 207, Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Ayes 57, noes 3, excused 2. Message number 460, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 279, Property Tax Exemptions, Order of Application. Ayes 60, excused 2. Message number 461, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 228, Prohibition on Private Funds for Conducting Elections. Ayes 56, noes 4, excused 2. Message number 462, the House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 136, Volunteer First Responder Health Insurance Revisions. Ayes 60, excused 2. Message number 467, conferees appointed. Mr. President, the House appointed House conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the Senate on amendments to Senate File 196. House conferees are Representative Harrelson, Chairman, Representative Larson, and Representative Wharf. Message number 466, Mr. President, the House appointed House conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the Senate on amendments to House Bill 47. House conferees are Representative Baer, Chairman, Representative Lucas, and Representative Pendergraft. Message number 468, the House appointed House conferees to meet with a like committee number 1 from the Senate on amendments to Senate File 17. House conferees are Representative Heiner, Chairman, Representative Knapp, and Representative Williams. Message number 464. Mr. President, the House failed to concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 47, Secretary of State Expedited Filings. Ayes 13, noes 47, excused 2. Sincerely, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. Messages from the Governor.
From the Governor, March 3, 2025. For the Honorable Bo Beitman, Wyoming Senate President, referencing veto of Senate Enrolled Act number 58, Senate File 132, Protecting Critical Infrastructure and Systems from Drones. Dispensing with further reading. March 3, 2025, to the Honorable Bo Beitman, President of the Senate, referencing no signature of Senate Enrolled Act 50, Senate File 195, Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan Program, dispensing with further reading. Message number, March 3, 2025, to the Honorable Chip Nyman, House Speaker, Wyoming State Legislature, regarding veto of House Enrolled Act number 45, House Bill 36, Hathaway Scholarship Amendments, dispensing with further reading. March 3, 2025, to the Honorable Chip Nyman, Speaker of the Wyoming House of Representatives, referencing veto of House Enrolled Act number 35, House Bill 64, Chemical Abortions Ultrasound Requirement, dispensing with further reading. March 3, 2025, to the Honorable Chip Nyman, House Speaker, Wyoming State Legislature, referencing veto of House Enrolled Act number 47, House Bill 94, Charter School Authorizations, Amendments, dispensing with further reading. Sincerely, Mark Gordon, Governor.
Thank you, Randy. Joint Conference Committee reports. Thank you. Message number 323, referencing Senate File 32.
Joint Conference Committee report, referencing message number 323 of the House, referencing Senate File 32, unpaved roads, speed limits amendments.
Thank you, Randy. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of the Joint Conference Committee Report Number 2 to Senate File 32, Unpaved Road Speed Limit Amendments, referencing House Message Number 323, and ask for an aye vote. Ladies and gentlemen, we went through two joint conference committees on this language for the unpaved road bill, and we finally came to I think, a very good spot that appeases everybody. So with this amendment, or with this change to that the committee came up with, will allow the reduction of a speed limit down to 35 miles per hour without a speed study. But further, it goes on to allow a temporary reduction below 35 miles per hour without a speed study for a period not exceeding 1 year. So everybody was happy with that. It requires the consultation of the local authority and the local authority's engineer and road and bridge superintendent and law enforcement folks. So I think it's a pretty good change that we agreed to, and it'll give that local control to the counties and still have the road and bridge people look at it if it's below 35 miles an hour. So I ask for your aye vote.
Okay, discussion on the Joint Conference Committee report. Any discussion? Seeing none. The motion is that the Senate do adopt the Joint Conference Committee number 2 report to Senate File 32 and vote aye. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Joint Conference Committee Report Number 2 to Senate File 32. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? No. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Excuse me, Driscoll? Aye. French? No. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Hicks, aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Beg your pardon, Smith? No. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
No.
No. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. Joint Conference Committee Report Number 2 to Senate File 32, 22 aye, 9 no.
By your vote, you have adopted the Joint Conference Committee Number 2 report referencing Senate File 32. And, one more Joint Conference Committee report, message number 452 referencing Senate File 196.
Message number 452, referencing Senate File 196, Joint Conference Committee Number 1 report, Second Amendment Protection Act amendments, Senate File 196.
Thank you. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move concurrence of message 452, which is Senate File 196, and ask for your aye vote. Members of the Senate, we rejected the severability provision. That's all we took out. I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Discussion on the Joint Conference Committee report. Seeing none. Motion is that the Senate do adopt the Joint Conference Committee Number 1 report referencing Senate File 196 and vote aye. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Joint Conference Committee Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1 to Senate File 196. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstader? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Garou? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Joint Conference Committee Report Number 1 to Senate File 196, 31 aye.
By your vote, you have adopted the Joint Conference Committee Number 1 report referencing Senate File 196. Mr. Vice President, looks like we have some special guests back there again today. Do you want to grab them? Welcome back, sir. Would you like a few moments to speak?
I spoke yesterday.
Okay, well, let's go down to the microphone so we can hear what's going on here.
Yep. Thank you again for inviting me over here to your esteemed chamber. Like I said yesterday, we're looking for more and more investment and trade and tourism between Wyoming and Taiwan. So I do bring me a gift from Taiwan. It's a famous whiskey called Kavalan. You may Google this up. It's kind of famous. Usually, when I was young, it's like a very, very cheap, like $20, but nowadays it's about $200. So over there. So you can tell there's so many blind tags. So I can use this as a token of my appreciation for your support. So I'd like to present to President Beitman.
Thank you so much. See,
you,
here,
sir.
here. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
What a generous gift. You know this body very well, sir. Oh, yeah. This will be gone in no time. I bet it'll be gone by noon with this crowd. So thank you. I'll set it up here on the desk. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. One more hand for Taiwan, please. Yeah, Ellen says, who needs a doctor of the day now? All right, thank you for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, veto override. It's that time of year. Madam Majority Floor Leader.
Unwanted?
Madam Majority Floor Leader, we're at that order of business of considering veto overrides. Do you have anything on your desk?
I guess, but I'm not. All right, Mr. President, pursuant to Article 4, Section 8 of the Wyoming Constitution, I'm not sure why I'm doing this, but I suppose I'll do it. I move that the Senate reconsider Senate Enrolled Act, House Enrolled Act 58, being original Senate File 132, and override the veto of Senate File 132, protecting critical infrastructure and systems from drones.
Okay, you've heard the motion. The motion requires a 2/3 vote to override the veto. Is there any discussion? Senator Dockstader, are you? Nope, he's not. Senator Jones, this is your baby. What say you, Senator Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for considering this bill again. I know we had widespread support across both sides of this building in this state. It is concerning what's going on, and this was just an extra measure to protect our critical infrastructure in Wyoming.
Thank you, Senator Jones. Yes, there's discussion. Probably second and third reading rules. Senator Nethercott.
Well, that's her second time.
Oh, yeah. Senator Case, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I think sometimes cooler heads can prevail. And, you know, the FFA, the Federal Aviation Administration, has responsibility in this area. We don't. It is a serious problem and people are very concerned. But this bill doesn't accomplish what we think it does. And I think we ought to let this one cool off a little bit. And I would ask you to support the governor and vote no.
Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm in favor of this veto override because we've dealt with this FAA story that they're in control of the airspace from the tips of the blades of the grass all the way to the sky. Well, I can assure you they seem to be in control of nothing because these unauthorized, unknown drones are flying around. They've been flying around. It's a national issue. It's certainly a Wyoming issue. And I think it's high time we address this. I understand there's some challenges here, but I don't know what we're supposed to do. Just sit here and take it? We're supposed to just let this happen in our airspace, in our critical infrastructure, and just have this, you know, be a day-to-day occurrence like they flew a balloon across the United States? Well, I say no. On and for the veto override. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the intentions of this bill are good. I'm against it. I was one of the few who voted against it and explain why. I'm nervous about this, you know, potentially criminalizing innocent behavior of somebody that was well-intended, but he kind of crossed the line. So it made me nervous. That's why I was a no on this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm for the veto override. It seems like a lot of the concern that we got in this letter deals with the physical act of shooting down one of these aircrafts, which I have to say, it seems extremely improbable. The important parts of this bill is that it gives law enforcement the ability to potentially find the folks on the ground, presumably within line of sight of where the drone is, and have additional tools for law enforcement to prosecute those individuals. So the parts of the bill that are more likely to be used in real life don't seem to be even problematic according to this veto override. So I think that the concerns, the legal concerns generated do not trump the practical use that this could provide to our law enforcement. So I think we're in good shape with this one. I can support it. If we need to come back and clean it up later, that's fine. But just the likelihood of either the National Guard or law enforcement shooting down one of these drones is very small in my mind.
Okay. Senator Nethercutt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the issue is that neither the National Guard or law enforcement can violate federal law. So our Wyoming statute does not authorize them, nor can it authorize them to violate federal law. And so the bill is attempting to do that by giving them jurisdiction to shoot down these drones, of which I'm not sure they have access to the information that the FAA would for who is authorized in the airspace. So I think that the governor identified and agrees with the concern. I think everyone agrees with the concern, which is why the bill passed out of both chambers with full support. But I think what the governor is asking for is perhaps additional conversation in order to do this lawfully and in cooperation with our federal partners who have access to the data associated with the airspace, and recognizing that we cannot authorize law enforcement to shoot down a drone because it's meaningless, because they still would be in violation of federal law.
Let's go to Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not for or against this override, but I will simply say this. There are a number of issues related to this that I don't think we have fully discovered yet. I think that this problem is going to get worse, whatever these objects are. But I do know this, that on the East Coast, nothing was done, even though other state senators demanded answers. They never got any answers. Even our federal government, under the previous administration, said we don't know what they are. This is going to get worse, not better. And so I think something needs to be done. But again, I will say this. I think there are a number of issues related to this topic that have yet to be answered and discovered yet.
Thank you. Senator, looks like Hicks, would you like to speak?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just point out to the body, the provisions that the governor specifically called out in E or F are strictly permissive. There's no duty that the National Guard, in fact, that would be as an act of the governor. Governor may. So if the governor chooses not to, he doesn't have to bring in the National Guard. Same thing with law enforcement. It's permissive. It's not a duty on law enforcement. It just says they may do that on and for the veto override, given the nature that it puts absolutely no duty on anybody in the bill, just provides an opportunity, should the occasion arise, that they may do something. So on and for the veto override.
Back to you, Senator Cates, for your second time.
Mr. President, we need to be careful. If we pass that, then we have in our law that the governor may call out the National Guard to shoot something down, basically. And that's a violation of our relationship in this federal world and the military, Mr. Chairman, the federalization of the military. From my understanding, the governor can call out the National Guard for civilian emergencies, but it's not exactly an act of war, Mr. President, although it could potentially be. It is, to use the violence and to shoot down something, that's a big deal. And governors can't do that on their own with their National Guards. And even to have it in our law being as a permissive, It's still not right, Mr. President. We need to vote no.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make it pretty clear, this isn't skeet shooting. We're not throwing up clay targets and shooting them down in any willy-nilly manner. But I think we live in a world now where they've actually weaponized drones. I mean, you've seen it on the news, you've watched what's happened in the Ukraine and just the goings-on over there. They're quite possibly easily weaponized. And I think we need to give deference to our law enforcement and our governor to allow them to have that flexibility so they can take action. I wouldn't want to sit by and have something fly by with a mobile grenade on it or whatever they may have attached to it, and maybe it's seen or maybe it's not seen. But if they have reasonable suspicion that this is a life safety issue and a hazard to people, I would like to give them that flexibility. At least not come back and say, well, there was no statutory mechanism for me to do this, so I guess I won't. I wouldn't want that happening. So this isn't skeet shooting. This is about our good folks in law enforcement and the governor's office and everybody involved making sane decisions to protect public safety. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hicks for your second time.
Yeah, for my second time, Mr. President, it doesn't say anything in the bill about shooting anything down. It says they authorized actions, so read the bill. The governor may order the National Guard to assist in taking or using reasonable actions to prevent or stop the use of unmanned aircraft systems. Doesn't say anything about shooting things down. It's the same provision for law enforcement. It's permissive. It says a peace officer or official may authorize the use of a reasonable action to prevent the use, so you're going to stop it before it happens, of an unmanned aircraft operating system in violation of this section. So we need to focus on the real language in the bill. It doesn't say that they're going to go out and shoot them down. It just says whatever they deem as a reasonable alternative to stop the use of those. It may be preemptive, it may be post-emptive, that you just follow them, find out where they're landing, who's the individuals that do this. It's not prescriptive to the point that it says that you're going to be shooting them out of the air with local law enforcement or the National Guard.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, I do appreciate the reading of the first sentence of that section, but the second section actually talks about disabling, damage, or removing from the prohibited location. To me, that means you're flying over one of these critical infrastructures. That's the prohibited location. How else do you get rid of it if you're not trying to remove it from there? It's not about where it's on the ground elsewhere, somewhere else. So just a comment there. But Mr. President, actually it struck me as I re-reviewed this bill. We haven't seen it in quite some time. Re-reviewed this bill, going to page 1 in the bill, it talks about where you can't operate. But it talks about intentionally photograph, et cetera, critical infrastructure or critical system. Of course, those are defined later on in the bill. And it seems like about 5 or 6 years ago, we had quite a bit of discussion about data trespass and what people could do to get data from somewhere else. So I know there's folks in here that recall that discussion. And I'd just like to know if this somehow harkens back to some of that discussion about getting information as a and it was a First Amendment violation to say you couldn't get information by this. So I'm just interested if anybody recalls any of that discussion from that data trespass discussion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Barlow. Senator Jones for your second time.
Mr. President, this bill addresses an issue that we have yet to be able to solve. This is just giving some of our communities the power to watch these drones. They shall do something about them if they're able to, or if they can find an operator. This is just something for us to be able to protect ourselves. And as of yet, we have no word from the FAA or the federal government as to whether these drones, which are not Christmas present sized drones, these are gigantic drones, and we have no idea what they are doing above our critical infrastructure. That's the root of this bill, and that is the issue that we are trying to assist our communities and to keep our critical infrastructure intact.
Okay, sensing we're ready to vote, Chief Clerk will call the roll. This is a 2/3 vote.
Veto override vote, original Senate File 132, Senate Enrolled Act 58. Anderson?
You broke the system. Senator Cooper.
Just a clarification, I is sustaining the veto, or I is
The
overriding?
motion is to override, so an
Motion to
aye vote
override.
is
Thank you,
to
sir.
override, a no vote sustains the override. Or sustains the veto, excuse me. Okay. Okay, we're having a little technical difficulties right now with the roll call system. Senator Hicks, you have a privilege of the floor while we're waiting?
Mr. President, could I have privilege of the floor?
Yes, sir.
Members of the Senate, we have with us today delegation from representatives of the 32 conservation districts around the state of Wyoming. If they could please stand up. Would like to recognize them, your locally elected government officials and some of their staff. Give them a warm welcome to the Wyoming Senate.
Welcome to the Senate. Okay, so we stand and take a 5-minute break? Okay, sounds like the system's going to take about 5 minutes to patch this glitch, and so we'll stand at ease till the sound of the gavel for about 5 minutes. Senate will come back to order. Make sure we've got everybody in here for a roll call vote. All right, we have a quorum. Okay, the motion is to the Senate reconsider Senate Enrolled Act 58 being original Senate File 132 and override the veto of Senate File 132. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Anderson? Aye. Aye. Barlow? No. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Crego? Aye. Crum? No. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. French? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? No. Olson? Aye. Pappas? No. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Biteman?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate file, original Senate file 132, SCA number 58, override vote, 23 aye, 8 no.
By your vote, the motion to override the veto of Senate File 132 has passed. Signing of enrolled acts. House Enrolled Act number 63.
House Enrolled Act Number 63, being original House Bill 136, an act relating to compensation and benefits.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 63, being original House Bill 136. I'm so signed. House Enrolled Act number 64.
House Enrolled Act Number 64, being original House Bill 279, an act relating to property taxation.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 64, being original House Bill 279. I'm so signed. House Enrolled Act number 65.
House Enrolled Act Number 65, being original House Bill 228, an act relating to elections.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 65, being original House Bill 228. I'm so signed. House Enrolled Act number 66.
House Enrolled Act Number 66, being original House Bill 207, an act relating to religious freedom.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 66, being original House Bill 207. I'm so signed. House Enrolled Act number 67.
House Enrolled Act Number 67, being original House Bill 147, an act relating to the administration of government.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 67, being original House Bill 147. I'm so signed. House Enrolled Act number 68.
House Enrolled Act Number 68, being original House Bill 316, an act relating to school finance.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act Number 68, being original House Bill 316. So signed. House Enrolled Act Number 69.
House Enrolled Act Number 69, being original House Bill 62, an act relating to crimes and offenses.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act Number 69, being original House Bill 62. So signed. House Enrolled Joint Resolution Number 2.
House Enrolled Joint Resolution Number 2, being original House Joint Resolution 3, a joint resolution to support rural schools in Wyoming.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Joint Resolution Number 2, being original House Joint Resolution 3. So signed. Okay. Senator Rothfuss?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, pursuant to Rule 4-5A and B, I'd like to move that the Senate allow a bill to be jacketed, assigned a bill number, and introduced past the deadline for presentation and introduction in the Senate. The bill is 25 LSO 802, State Shooting Complex Funding Amendment. Following approval of that motion, it is my intention to then have the bill immediately numbered so that it can be introduced, and then I will make a motion that it be referred directly to Committee of the Whole.
I find this motion to be in order. Pursuant to Senate Rule 4-5, the motion to allow the numbering and introduction of a bill past the deadline requires a vote of 2/3 of the elected members of the Senate. Is there any debate?
Mr. President?
Senator Rothfuss.
So briefly, this legislation is a remedy for the discussion we had yesterday. It provides a constitutional opportunity for us to remove the restriction on the funding for the shooting complex. So there's no appropriation in this legislation that we'll be considering. It would just remove that restriction that's on it and then provide that spending authority that's necessary to utilize those funds. I'd ask everyone to support this introduction, and then we'll have some subsequent required motions related to the rules to expedite it, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Aye. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. No. Cooper? Aye. Craigo? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? No. Driscoll?
No.
No. Print? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
Aye.
Aye. Pearson? Aye to no. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. On the motion regarding LSO Draft 25 LSO 0802, 26 aye, 5 no.
Having received a 2/3 vote of the elected members of the Senate, the bill shall be immediately jacketed, assigned a bill number, and presented to the Chief Clerk for introduction. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Because the Senate will likely be considering bills on committee of the whole today, if we hear bills on committee of the whole today, I move pursuant to Mason Section 187-6K and Section 302 to set the order of consideration of bills on general file by placing the following bill as the second item to be taken up for committee of the whole, House Bill 249, runoff elections.
Senator, could you restate the rule again, please?
Mr. President, pursuant to Mason Section 187-6K and Section 302.
Thank you. What was the bill number again? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 249, runoff elections. I believe the good chief clerk has the bill for
There it is
you.
right there, House Bill 249, okay. All right, under Mason's, questions relating to this motion are debatable. The merits of the motion are debatable, not the merits of the bill. Is there any debate on the motion? Any debate on the motion? Yes, sir, Senator Case?
With regards to the motion only, I'm trying to understand what we're doing. This was about something that wasn't put forward in general file, is that correct? And then we're trying to make sure now that it is when we pass the last day for general file? So we're suspending all the rules, is that what's the effect of it is, Mr. President? To get similar to the last motion, is in essence what we're doing is suspending the rules to bring it up and continue general file even when the day has passed?
Yeah, so Senator Case, this wouldn't suspend the rules because the rules regarding committee of the whole are not rules-based, they're calendar-based. And so therefore, this motion is in order to bring a bill up for consideration on committee of the whole. Since the bringer mentioned that we could possibly be going to committee of the whole, she brought in a motion to bring an extra bill up to be heard second if we do go in the committee of the whole, and that's what we're voting on.
I think we're going to have a ruling on that, Mr. President.
A ruling as to whether or not it's in order?
Yeah, why don't you listen to the others and then.
Okay, I'll take discussion. I'll go to Senator
Yeah.
Crago
And we
first.
may have,
Thank you, Senator Crago.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a question, not for or against the motion, but whether it's the appropriate time to bring the motion. Seems to me that's a motion for the committee of the whole once we're resolved into the committee of the whole. And if I'd like to know why or where the rule stating that is.
Senator Pappas.
Mr. President, I think the motion's probably in order, based on the Mason's rules. However, all it's doing is placing it on committee of the whole. I don't think it's suspending the 3 readings in one day. I don't think that we will have to vote on that to suspend the rules to have 3 readings on that particular bill today. Because if we put it on general file and discuss it, it's just going to die anyhow, right? If we don't suspend the rules for that bill as well.
Okay, Senator Rothfuss.
And Mr. President, I did just want to echo the last point as being accurate, that we would need to expedite, and you'll see that for the shooting complex legislation, that will have to be expedited to get it considered appropriately. And so we'll be bringing a suspension of rules motion later to requiring 2/3 to expedite it through the process. And this would be then by a separate motion to consider that, but if you look at Mason's, section 302 is order of considering proposals, and that is in order. The senator's motion is certainly in order to make that recommendation that the second bill considered on committee of the whole, if we go to committee of the whole, would be the runoff election bill. So I believe everything's in order. This would be a simple majority vote of the chamber to support the motion, and again, at the discretion of the body.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I'm trying to figure out where the bill was in the process when the committee of the whole consideration ended. It was not listed as being available for committee of the whole on the printed material. Now, whether it came out of committee and got to that status or not, I don't know. And I'm inquiring, was the bill still in committee? So are we attacking the committee process with this motion? Or are we attacking what has traditionally been the majority floor leader's prerogative in terms of selecting which bills come up? And either way, Mr. President, I would urge us to vote no on the motion, because frankly, I think probably it was the majority floor leader's prerogative. And I think the process has worked very smoothly this session. I think it's a mistake to start picking bills out that were not quite as ready as some of the others. I suppose we could be here till midnight and do that, Mr. President, but I think the best time to stop this is right now.
Okay. Further discussion for the bringer? Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just for clarification, the bill was on committee of the whole, I believe, last Friday on our cutoff date. It did not come up for discussion before that. And the reason I brought the motion is I think it rises to the level of discussion for the body. Just like the bill, we are introducing, drafting, and all of those things in one day or two. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Case.
Mr. President, I think the circumstances here are different. Because the Senate and the legislature didn't pass a budget, there's an urgency with respect to a project that's important to the state of Wyoming that needs to move forward and would have moved forward in that budget. The rest, what bills were left on general file when we left out of here on Friday night, having worked later than our friends down the hall and having done a very diligent, long day. That's part of the process, Mr. President. There were a lot of good bills there. We could bring every one of them back. Is that where this Senate wants to go? This will put us in the cesspool that we were in last year. So it's time to stand up for the system, time to stand up for our majority floor leader, and time to vote no on this motion.
Okay. Further discussion? Question being called. The motion requires a majority of the members of the Senate. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Anderson? No. Barlow? No. Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Crago? No. Crum? No. Dockstetter? No. Driscoll? No. French? No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? No. Cole? No. Landon? No. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Olson? No. Pappas? No. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? No. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Beitman?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 249 moved to Committee of the Whole, 5 aye, 26 no.
That motion has failed. Madam Majority Floor Leader?
Mr. President, I move that we stand recessed until 2 PM.
Any announcements? Seeing none? Oh, okay, here they come. Mr. Vice President, can you come handle the announcements, please, and the motion?
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just a reminder, our Joint Education Committee will be meeting tomorrow right at noon, so don't eat. Just head right down to room 5 downstairs to meet with Joint Education, take a look at interim topics. Thank you.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Vice President, your Minerals Joint Committee will meet today at noon in E5 to hear interim committee topics. Thank you.
Senator French.
Thank you, Vice President. Your joint ag committees will meet tomorrow upon noon recess to discuss interim topics. My sheet says Capital Extension Room 6 and online, but I believe it's Room 5 and online. That's upon noon recess tomorrow to discuss interim topics. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Senator Smith.
Mr. Vice President, the Joint Conference Committee on many senators' favorite bill, Wyoming Wednesday, will be today at 1:30 in room 113 West.
Senator Landon.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. Just a note of interest, if you're missing meeting every morning, we'll have a meeting tomorrow morning of the Wayfinding and Historical Exhibit Committee, 8 o'clock down in the Extension classroom. Obviously, that's open to the public. Thank you.
Any other announcements? You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, the Senate stands in recess till 2 PM.